Mayor Robinson. Okay, it's 12:04 now, and so at this time I'm going to call the meeting to order. Central Michigan Regional Transit Authority Board of Directors, uh, October 28, 2020. And at this time, I'm going to ask our clerk to do a roll call.
Okay, Colonel Lee,
Yes, here.
Ms. Horatio,
Here. Sorry.
that's okay. Ms. Dickerson,
Here.
Ms. Gleaton, Mr. Huggins,
Here.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Snood,
Here.
Representative Howard, Dr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. Burgess.
Here.
Okay, advisory now. Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Green,
Here.
Ms. Summers, Ms. Robinson, Mr. Kuhn, Mayor Walker,
Here.
Mr. Kane, and Mr. Unthink.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. It has been determined that we do have a quorum. So now we'll move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. I get a motion.
So moved. Ms. Anderson, I move to approve the agenda.
Second, this is Joyce Dickerson.
Okay. All right. Thank you. They've been properly moved and second that we approve the agenda. Any questions or concerns from anybody? If not, we'll go ahead and vote on approving of the agenda. Will you do a roll call for me again, please?
Yes, sir. Colonel Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Horatio,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson, Ms. Gleaton, Mr. Huggins,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson. Okay, thank you. Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard, Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
I keep dropping off and I missed it. What? I just got reconnected.
We are adopting the agenda. We are voting to adopt the agenda.
Okay, I second it. So yes, I vote to approve.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
I had to reconnect. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson. All right, so the agenda has been properly moved and seconded and voted and has properly passed. So at this time, we go on to item number 3, which is Midland Transit Riders Association update. Do we have anybody from Midland Riders Association who wants to speak?
No, sir.
Nope. No one? Okay. All right. Item 4, call to public. Do we have anybody signed up for that, for the call of the public?
Okay,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, Barry Walker.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I did not sign up in advance, but I do have something I need to bring to the board.
Okay. All right. So that's item 4. Okay, go ahead, Mayor Walker.
And this,
We recognize you.
and I think this question goes to John Ando more than anything else. I've been informed that the COMET has a late bus that leaves downtown Columbia. I believe it's 80L, and drops people off at the Harbison, basically up in my area in Irmo, but they're not charging for a fee for that. It's free fare. What's happening is we have a number of homeless people that start to migrate from down Columbia into the Harbison and Irmo area. And if that's true that there's a late bus that we don't charge a fare for, that people can hop.
Mayor Walker, presently the COMET system-wide is free right now. So every route and DART is free to passengers, and that's continuing until the state of emergency ends. However, this board will be revisiting that next in December once we have all the driver barriers installed.
In December, we're going to revisit that.
Yes, we're getting ready to have the driver barriers installed next month on the big, larger transit buses. If you would like, in relation to the concern you brought up, the last 83L served approximately 7:30 at night.
Right.
I can engage City of Columbia Police, since that's in City of Columbia jurisdiction, to ride 83L and give us some reports on what's going on.
It's not a matter of the homeless people riding the bus up here. It's just that they're starting to build encampments in the Harbison Walmart area, and as well as the Harbison Columbiana Avenue area. They're starting to go through the woods and build encampment out there. And I've gotten several concerns from citizens that they're taking the last bus from downtown Columbia free of charge and camping out here. So it's not a problem of being homeless. That's not the issue. The issue is if they're not being paying for a fee to ride the bus, I think we need to look at that sooner than later. But that's just my comment. Mr.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. We take that. We'll respond accordingly.
Mr. Chair,
Anyone else? Excuse me, any other speakers? Go ahead.
yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't want to just speak, but I just want to ditto Mayor Walker's comments a few minutes ago, call to the public, and I need to ditto that because the same is happening in the Dutch Square St. Andrews area. So I didn't know exactly how to address it, but we share the same problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dickerson. All right. Any other comments, any other speakers on call to the public? If none,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, if I can also ditto that, West Columbia is starting to see an influx of some more homeless coming in on the buses, and I've talked to several of our cops. They were saying that they're riding the bus for free, coming over, the river. Now, I agree. I mean, it's not a problem, but they're starting to make some encampments on the I-26 corridor there. We have some vacant land there, and that backs up to some homes there. So I just say the same thing. All right.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Call to public? If not, we'll take those, thank you for your comments, and we'll take those on the advisement and act accordingly. Now we'll move on to item number 5, which is presentations. Employee of the month for RapDev employees, Mr. Corey Gagnon.
Yes, I'd like to invite Mr. Gagnon to talk about the Employee of the Month for July, August, September, and October.
Oh, he worked 3 months?
Sorry, August, September, and October, pardon me. Coming to the...
Good afternoon, Mr. Leeds, Colonel Leeds, and the Chair. Thank you for having me. I'd like to present 6 folks who have done some exemplary service, 3 from and 3 from our subcontractor, TCS. For August, we'd like to recognize Mrs. Tara Lopez. Ms. Lopez began her career in transit when she was 16 years old. Since then, Tara has displayed an excellent attitude and is capable of taking on more responsibility. She is highly recommended when there is need for an operator for special events. She is always ready and willing to lend a hand when a shift needs to be covered. She is a team player, always has a smile on her face, and she interacts with the drivers and the public. She is not only proven to be a valuable asset to the operations department, but we really recognize her, and she's actually here in the room today, so thank you, Tara. For August, for TCS, is Ms. Thelma Walker. She's been with them since August of 2020. Ms. Walker started as a part-time customer service representative, and a year later, she was offered a full-time position. Ms. Thelma Walker has moved into the reservations position and has always gone above and beyond the call of duty to accommodate passengers who need trips. She treats every passenger like family, and for that, TCS is thankful. So, thank you, Ms. Thelma Walker. For the month of September, our ATV Dev Maintenance Employee for the month is Mr. Robert Young Williams. Robert began his career in transit as a mechanic several years ago. Since then, Robert has displayed an excellent attitude and remarkable work history. He is always eager to volunteer when there is a need regarding special projects or even unpopular assignments. He is always ready and willing to lend a hand when a shift needs to be covered. He's a team player and always friendly and outgoing. He's proven to be another valuable asset to the maintenance department and to RPDF. So thank you, Mr. Roger Young Williams. The TCS employee for the month of September is Shantae Thomas. Ms. Thomas started with Transport Care Services back in 2017, working as a driver. She's been selected as the Employee of the Month because she exemplifies the characteristics of a real team player. She goes above and beyond to accommodate her passengers. She never grumbles or complains, no matter how many times her schedule changes or no matter the job she is given her. She is the epitome of courtesy and professionalism. She's professional on the radio and helps her coworkers when asked. So we'd like to honor Shantae Williams for September. For the month of October, we'd like to recognize Ms. Pamela Mays. Ms. Mays began her career in transit about 8 years ago. She's displayed an excellent attitude and capable of taking on more responsibility. She works well with all operators. When the role of operations supervisor became available, she was promoted from operator to operations supervisor in 2016. She's an asset of the organization and team, and so we want to thank Pamela for everything she does. And TCS would like to recognize Mr. Don Williams. Mr. Don Williams is the employee month for 2020, but he started with TCS in 2015, but I think he's been a fixture for longer than that around the COMET building. Don has been an asset and pleasure to work with. He has been a loyal fixture in the COMET facility for many, many years. And Don has helped keep COMET Central clean, the vehicles clean, this place, Lucius Road clean. Always has a pleasant attitude, and I'm always happy every morning when he comes in and says good morning to me. So we'd like to congratulate Mr. Don Williams on being the October 2020 Employee of the Month. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. thank you, Mr. Gagnon. I just want to add congratulations to all of those persons who have been honored. And I want you to know that we appreciate your hard work, because I will tell you, when you do hard work and you do your job well, it makes all of us look great. And that's what we want to do as we provide services to the people of the Midlands. So thank you very much. That brings us on down to item number 6, which is public hearing. And in this particular case, we have 3 items. We have 3 public hearings, and the first one, 6A, we're going to ask Dr. Prince to take the lead on that one. It can be found in our package on pages 8 through 106. Dr. Prince.
Good afternoon. The COMET is required to submit a Title VI plan to the Federal Transit Administration every 3 years. The last update was submitted in 2017. This program is a requirement of the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which states that recipients of federal funds, which would include the COMET, will not discriminate based on race, color, or national origin. The Title VI plan was advertised in the state newspaper for approximately 2 weeks and posted on the agency's website. We requested public comments to be submitted to the agency by Friday, October 23rd, and we did not receive any comments. We followed FDA's guidelines and checklists to ensure that all required items were included in the plan. A component of the Title VI plan is the Language Assistance Plan, and the Language Assistance Plan basically places emphasis on individuals who are unable to speak, read, or write English. In the past, we had a separate document to address individuals with limited English proficiency, but once we updated the Title VI plan, we combined all components of the Title VI element into one document, and we have until to submit the document to the Federal Transit Administration. We are requesting approval of the updated Title VI plan to meet the Federal Transit Administration compliance requirements. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Dr. Prince, is the only update, is that just the language update?
Basically, yes. We just went in and made sure all items that are included in the checklist were included. So it's just more like an update of most of the language.
Thank you.
And I had a question too, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Ms. Mood.
Dr. Prince, I heard you say that about how we posted the public hearings and that we accepted comments up until a certain date. Did people have all of those written? Would they have to be written comments, or does the public have a way to call in comments in this virtual environment we live in?
We provide a telephone number for them to contact us, and then they had our address as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, at this time, I'm going to ask, are there any persons from the we have any persons that want to speak to this issue, or did we not, other than anybody there?
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, yeah, we'll open the public hearing.
Yeah, okay, we'll open the hearing at this time. Yep. Okay, we'll open the public hearing now. Do we have any speakers?
No, we have no speakers that want to speak on the Title VI program.
All right, very good. Then now we will close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the.
Mr. Chair, this is Joyce. I move to approve the presentation by Dr. Prince as presented.
Okay, okay. Very good. We need to get a motion for this too, though, don't we? And we need to get a motion for your request your request was that, so your motion, Mrs. Dickerson, your motion is to approve, to make a motion to approve the Title VI plan.
As presented, yes, sir.
Okay, as presented, okay, now can I get a second? Can I
Robert
get a
Morris,
second?
second.
Okay, properly moved in second, very good. Now, at this time, we need to, if anyone want to comment on anything, ask any questions, this is the time to do it before we vote. No comments, no requests, okay, very good. All right, so let's go ahead and vote on this. All in favor of, let's do a roll call again, Madam Clerk, since we can't see people in person.
Off of the phone?
Say again?
Colonel Lee?
Yes.
Of the phone?
Oh, okay. Hold one moment.
Hello, somebody's on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you wanting to talk about the Title VI plan?
Yes, about the, plan and the COMET. I'm a first responder, so I work in the nursing home, long-term care.
Title VI? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I guess we do have someone on the line that would like to talk about Title VI. Do you want to take up feedback from that person?
Yes, please. We need to hear what she has to say.
Okay, go ahead.
My area of where I live is in Casey, which is the 96L. And my work starts at 11 to midnight, and then I get off at 7. So you're providing service to the job, but not from the job. That's correct?
Actually, we do provide service to the job and from the job via 2 different ways. Route 91 in the morning, and then COMET on the go at night.
So COMET on the go at night starts at 8 o'clock p.m. and ends at 6 a.m. Is that correct?
That's the proposal.
Oh, I see.
Right now, it starts at 9 p.m. and ends at 3 a.m.
Oh. Okay. Wow. So do I have to choose one?
You can use Route 91 to get to work, and then in the evening time, you can either use Lyft or you can use Uber, and you put the code.
I usually use Uber in the evening.
Okay,
11 o'clock at night.
then that's fine. You can continue to use Uber.
And how does how does it happen? Do I pay Uber and then I get a discount, or how do I do that?
You put the code in the application, and then that's how you get the discount.
Okay. And you're going to give me that today?
The code is always on the bus. So when you ride the 91, look behind the driver, and you'll be able to see the code.
I see. Okay. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
All right.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers at this time? If not, we have a motion on the floor that has been moved and seconded. So now we're going to go ahead and vote on it. Will you go ahead and do a roll call for me, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Colonel Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Ratio?
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson?
Yes.
Ms. Gleason? Mr. Huggins?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Nude?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. That will take care of that. We move on to item number 5, number 6, Bravo, 6B. And we're going to ask our CEO,
Mr. Chair.
John Andor, to take the lead on this one. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Burgess.
Are we voting to send these things to public hearing? Are we opening them up for a public hearing? Which
Well,
one are we?
we just had a public hearing on that first one, and this one will be the same way. We're going to go ahead and have a public hearing today. That's what we're here to do, Mr. Burgess.
But how are we going to have a public hearing today and the public's not involved? I'm confused.
Well, they have it has been prepped and prepared during the last 30 plus days, and it's been open then during that time. So they have, the public supposed to know about it. Now maybe Mr. Andor can speak to that to answer your question a little more thoroughly.
I'm speaking to the chair now. Don't give me the ED. I'm speaking to the chair. The public,
Okay, well,
if the public hearing,
okay.
the public should be involved in them. If we are voting to send it to the public, we are within our rights.
Okay, it has been sent to the public. The public has been notified for the last 30 plus days. I think they did it on various media platforms, social media, newspapers, and other venues. So the public has been notified. They had an opportunity to submit some questions if they couldn't come in person, and they were given telephone information how to call in today if they wanted to speak to this issue. And I don't know how many they got because, that went into the office. I don't know whether they got any response or not, but that's what we're going to find out right now. That's what we're trying to do.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. If it's already been to the public, what are we voting on?
We're going to vote. We're going to vote on whether, we want to go ahead and vote on whether or not we're going to adopt these motions or not. If we find out that we don't have enough evidence to adopt it and everybody has to vote no, then it will not be adopted. On the other hand, if after our discussion and input from the public and we vote in the affirmative, then that's what this is all about. So that's why we have to do that public hearing. That's my understanding. Okay, does that take care of that, Mr. Burgess?
Oh, I'm more confused than before now, but I don't know.
Mr.
Okay.
Ferguson.
Well, let's go ahead and see what Mr. Andor has to say. Maybe he can give you a few more explanations and might make it a little clearer. Mr. Andor, will you go ahead with item 6B?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Page 107 in your packet. Today, we're requesting the Board of Directors to conduct a public hearing to add routes 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 24, 25, and 94 to the COMET transit system, as well as a reroute to Orbit Route 4 to serve SC Works, and approve the service change retroactive to September 1. Consistent with our fair and service change policy, and once approved by the service committee to authorize the public hearing and approved by the board, staff noticed the public 30 days prior to the hearing to gather feedback on the addition of the University of South Carolina transit service route to the COMET transit system, as well as changes to Orbit Route 4 to serve SC Works. Since these are new routes and changes that exceeded 25% per the board-adopted fair and service change policy. The way we advertise the public hearing is we put flyers on all the buses. We held We put advertisements on our website and on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also put a notice in the newspaper, and we sent out a press release. As it relates to adding these routes to the COMET transit system and the reroute to SV Works on Route 4, we did not get any feedback from the public on this matter. I do want to add, as it relates to the reroute to SV Works, we did work in partnership with the City of Columbia and the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce on this change. They were very supportive of the change because they were getting a lot of requests at their office of people who were trying to access job opportunities, but they had to walk from Sumter Street or Assembly Street to their facility up a hill. So the revision of Route 4 to serve this facility provided great opportunity to our residents accessing job opportunities. I'd request that you open the public hearing and gather public comments and then close it and then take action to approve these changes as presented. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Derek
Yes,
Huggins.
Mr. Huggins.
I would like to recuse myself from the discussion and the vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Robert Morris.
Okay, Dr. Morris. Thank you, Mr. Huggins. Dr. Morris.
Okay. Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Mood. Has the Service Committee discussed this?
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Please
Yes, the Service Committee has reviewed all of this whole proposal, brought it to the board for a vote for it to go out on public hearing, and the board approved it's going out for public hearing. So the answer to your question is yes, the Service Committee has reviewed this.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Anyone
else?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
That was my original question. If this is a public hearing, why is it happening at the board rather than at the public? It used to be it'd be out in the community or transit center that I complained about, not at the board. We would see only the approval back at the board after it's been at a public hearing.
Well, I don't know under the circumstances. This is the procedure that we've followed recently, as far as I know. And but that is a question. I mean, I guess under the circumstances with the virus and all that, I'm not sure whether we could have a public
in the
hearing.
past, we have a public hearing, then it comes back after the public hearing happens, and then the board vote to approve it.
Okay.
We seem to be changing procedures month by month, you know.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
This Ms. Dickerson, may I please address Mr. Burgess, if it's okay?
Say again, Ms. Burgess. I can't hear. What's that, Ms. Dickerson?
I was just going to say, if it came from the Service Committee and you all sent it out for a public hearing, and since we cannot gather, and then the methodology that was used for a public hearing took place of, a public gathering, giving the public the opportunity to participate or give their comments via the telephone or emails or however they choose to do it, because right now we cannot gather. And if no one has, has responded, or if someone responded, we should have those comments. And if we have those comments that were sent to the director or the staff, then those comments will be read into the records. And from that point, the public hearing will be closed. Thank you.
Okay, I tell you what. Let's what we want to do. Excuse me. What we need to do now at this point. I thank you, Ms. Dickerson. Let's go ahead with this procedure today, which would now at this time at this time, I want to open the public hearing, because we might have some people who want to talk about this. I don't know how many responses we got. I don't know whether we got any or not. So at this time, I want to open this public hearing. Do you have any respondents?
I apologize. I just want to remind everyone when you're not speaking to mute your phone, please. We're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just so you're aware, the policy for public hearing is on page 117 of the board packet. And for the past 4 years, this is the forum of how we've conducted public hearings. We hold public workshops with the public, and then we hold a public hearing with the board of directors. And page 117 explains that policy was approved by the board of directors. So we did do our public workshop and got no feedback from anybody opposing or opposing the proposal.
Okay.
So this is the final venue, basically, by having this public hearing. So the board, per the policy on page 117, the board can hear from the public if those public members wish to speak in front of the board on these proposed changes.
And that's what
Mr. Chair.
We're offering that opportunity right now as we open the public hearing for those persons who want to speak in front of the board or speak to the board. This is your time to do it right now. We're opening the public hearing. Can we?
Mr. Chair, Robert Morris. Robert Morris.
Dr. Morris.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Andor. The public hearing was held earlier.
No, we held public workshops.
There was a public workshop.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
We actually did that with the university through a student forum.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, if there's no one from the public is vying to speak at this point in time, I move to accept the proposal and adopt the proposal as presented by Mr. Andor.
This is Anderson, and I second it.
All right. Properly moved in second.
But Mr. Chairman, for formality, we need to open the public hearing and close it.
We need to close the public hearing. That's right. We need to close the public hearing, and that's what we've done. So now, Ms. Dickerson, your motion is in order right now.
To accept the recommendation and the report of Mr. Andor as presented.
Anderson, I second.
Properly moved in second that we accept the report and the recommendation as presented by the staff. And so at this time, we are open for further debate if we want to have a discussion of it before we vote. Anybody want to comment one way or the other about this motion before we vote? Well, if not, I'm getting no responses, so apparently silence give consent. That's what I've always heard. So at this time, what we're going to do is go ahead and call for the motion, or call for the vote. And so I'm asked, clerk, if you will, ma'am, will you please do me a roll call on this particular motion?
Okay, Colonel Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Terratio,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Ms. Gleason, Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Booth,
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Abstain.
Okay. It looks like the motion passes, so the motion did pass. Thank you very much. And we will act accordingly. The next item on the agenda is another public hearing, and this one will also be led by Mr. John Andrew. John, 6 Charlie.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I also have Tavis Eric Harris here, our planning and development specialist, that will be able to answer any questions about this item as well. So in a quick summary, working through the service committee and the board approving having a public hearing, we are asking the board to consider public hearing for route changes that exceed 25% for implementation on December 6th of 2020. As you're aware, we had the COVID-19 pandemic that hit South Carolina in March of 2020. The board authorized a reduction of service to what we are calling Saturday schedule that has been in play basically since March of 2020. The purpose of these changes is to memorialize the changes that the board made in March of 2020 become permanent. And that is basically looking at the data that has been presented to the service committee in relation to the performance of several of these routes that are significantly underperforming. And while ridership is starting to slowly come back, it has not come back to the standard that has been established by the performance measures adopted by this board. In summary, there is a series of changes for the board to be aware of and the public. They include enhancement of service because we've had additional passenger demand that warrants adding more service back. There is reduction of service to a Saturday level of service, Monday through Saturday, just because the demand has not gotten back to pre-pandemic levels. And then there is some routes that are being reduced due to reduction in funding, because those routes were funded by a different funding source. Those details are shown on pages 126 through 130. The COMET did advertise this public hearing on all of the buses. We put flyers on all the buses so the public knew what we're planning to change. We advertised in the newspaper. We advertised on social media. We advertised on the website. And we also sent emails to our network of people that sign up for COMET alerts. We also held 2 workshops, virtual workshops via Facebook Live earlier this week to also gather feedback. I only, on the record, have 3 formal concerns related to the proposed changes, and I will express those concerns so the board is aware. The first concern relates to Route 57L. The user stated formally that she would like Route 57L to continue as is, running from 6 a.m. in the morning until 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and from about 7 in the morning until 7 p.m. on Saturdays. The proposal that staff has is combining Route 57L and Route 53S due to the low ridership of 57L and 53S collectively. 57L has been significantly underperforming, sometimes carrying less than 2 passengers per hour on average, which is definitely in conflict with the standards that the board has adopted. We've expressed that proposed change to that user. The second concern relates to Soda Cap Connector 1, and that the user sent correspondence via social media, and I also believe they also sent correspondence to the city of West Columbia expressing that they would like Soda Cap 1 to continue to run from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Wednesday, and from 9 a.m. to 12 midnight Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays. They also would like better connectivity on route to connect the House of Rayford from downtown Columbia. We told that user that due to some funding reductions and lack of evening demand in the Vista and Main Street, it didn't make sense to run Soda Cap Connector beyond 6 p.m. at the present time, 7 days a week. However, per the proposal presented to the board, we would like the board to revisit evening service on Soda Cap Connector in 2021 once we get ahead of this pandemic. As it relates to serving House of Rayford, staff is recommending that we extend the 96L, the first trip in the morning and the last trip at night, to COMET Central, so that people who are coming from Richland County trying to access jobs at House of Rayford have a direct connection and no longer have to take Route 91 and walk 20 minutes from Knox Abbott to House of Rayford, since Soda Cap Connector would no longer be the appropriate route for those users to take. The last comment was really more of a supportive comment that relates to the COMET on the go, and this user expressed that they were pleased that COMET on the go would be available from 8 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. and will be extended until 6 a.m. This person works at Lexington Medical Center, and she got off of work after COMET on the go with Uber ended. So now she'll be able to take a COMET route to Lexington Medical in the day and then take COMET on the go home at night. Also at the public workshop that we had earlier this week, there are some people who live outside of the DART service area that expressed some comments. They were pleased to know that starting next month, we'll be starting the volunteer transportation program and the taxi subsidy program, so that they would now have access to transportation. Those programs were approved by the board in December of 2019, and we have special grant funds from the Council of Governments via the 5310 program to pay for those new programs to help people who live outside of the DART service area still have access to public transportation. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, myself or Eric, and we ask that you have a public hearing to consider these changes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Chair.
Ms. Ferguson, yes,
my
sir.
question is, why are we changing routes while we're running free routes? When we go back to paying, all these routes are changed again, and we are running less than 50% at the present time on all services. I just need an explanation of that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to comment on that.
Go right ahead.
Ms. Mood.
Well, I just want the board to be aware that when we looked at the routes not meeting, underperforming and not meeting the ridership standards, we didn't look at just underperformance during the time of the pandemic. The changes that we brought to the board to go out for public hearing take into account routes that were already underperforming before we went into the emergency coverage mode. So we're not making decisions based on just the ridership during the pandemic that, as Mr. Burgess pointed out, might change after this time passes. We were looking at a pattern that existed before we got into the limited service during the pandemic.
But
Mr. Chair, Dr. Morris.
Dr. Morris.
I heard what Ms. Mood said, but I don't think that we are being considerate, knowing that we are taking a look at ridership prior to this coronavirus, and we know that we have the funds to pay for these routes until next year. So I don't think that we should be considering cutting any service at this time. And as what Ms. Mood said, she's taken under consideration what happened prior to the pandemic and now what's happened during the pandemic.
Okay.
I don't think that is fair.
Mr. Fergus, and then we're gonna move on. Mr. Fergus, let's go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead,
My
Mr. Fergus,
thing
go ahead.
is, we've been under this pandemic for about 7 months. Prior to the pandemic, ridership was down, so where is the data coming from? To say these routes need to be adjusted, anything, because we know we're going to do it. We've lost paying bus riders. All our free buses ride around the city hauling homeless people. That's all, just riding the bus all day long. So where are we getting the data for bus riders? We've lost the bus riders. Other than those going to work will ride it free, those that hadn't switched to other transportation.
Okay. I see your point, Mr. Burgess. Now, I tell you what, though, let's do this. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing, see if we get any input from the public. Then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll discuss our problems after we make a motion on it. So at this time, I'm opening the public hearing. Is there anyone who wants to speak from the public at this time? Okay. We will now close the public hearing since there are no speakers. And at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to...
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
This is Ms. Dickerson. I know you opened and closed the public hearing because you didn't have anyone here. Can staff tell us whether or not there were any comments prior to closing the public hearing so we can make sure that we include those as well?
Good point. Staff, this is your time. Do we have anybody from public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We did have those 3 comments formally that was submitted that I just mentioned previously. That was the 50L concern, the 96L and the Route 1 concern, and then supportive of the COMET on the Go program expansion and the addition of the volunteer transportation program and the subsidized taxi program.
Okay.
And did I understand, Mr. Chairman, did I understand Mr. Ando to say that the second comment did result in a modification of the plan?
No, we already had that.
We were already doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we got feedback from the past about serving House of Rayford, as well as we also got feedback from the city of West Columbia wanting the general COMET route to better serve it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So now, if there are no other comments, we will go ahead and close
Mr. Mr. Chair, Robert Morris.
Yes, sir.
I want to have a full understanding. Does it cost us anything now, cost the COMET, to run these routes?
I tell you what, Dr. Morris, will you let us go ahead and get the motion on the table so we know exactly what we're talking about, and we'll answer all of those questions at that time when we go into the debate portion. Will you do that?
Oh, that's fine.
I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this public hearing stuff now. So
Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to motion to accept the results of the public hearing and approve this, please.
I second.
Okay. Properly moved in second. Very good. That we accept the results of the staff and move for approval. Now, at this time, we want to go ahead and hear any discussion. And Dr. Morris, your question, a previous question, I think this is a great place to ask that same question now. And let's get some good, in-depth answers from you,
Yes, if we do not cut any of these service routes, does it cost the COMET any funds?
Dr. Morris, yes. The proposed reduction of 17,000 vehicle service hours annually is 1,022,040. Be mindful that some of these reductions need to occur per our service equity policy because we did not get enough local match funding from Lexington County collectively for this. And a lot of the service that is being recommended for reduction are people are not using these services. The buses are carrying less than 1 passenger per hour, and they have a very high subsidy. I also want you to be mindful that we're also adding back service on like Route 47 in Eastover that's experiencing demand, Route 45 down Gardner's Ferry, and expanding the Comet on the Go program. So this is just really to ensure that we're running the right service based on the demand that we have and being mindful of our budget.
Why we have the pandemic, we are receiving CARES funds, and that will take care in a deficit. Is that correct?
No, the CARES funds is while it's covering our operational costs, it's only covering a portion of our operational costs. So if we don't make changes now, then what's going to happen when we come out of the pandemic with sales tax revenue still being down, our state revenue being down, we're going to have a deficit in the future. So where we're trying to be proactive with not seeing the demand for the routes that we're making these recommendations for and presenting those now. I do want to advise that all of the routes that are being reduced have an alternative. Nobody's being left without transportation. They're just being redirected to using a more cost-effective mode.
Am I hearing you saying something different now? At one point you said that we will have a surplus of $6.1 million going into next year, next fiscal year. Are you saying that that's not the case anymore?
We still have a surplus of funds, and that's money that is in our reserve. And for our long-term financial plan, the goal is to continue to build those reserves so we have funding for when the penny funds run out. So all we're doing is just making sure that we remain balanced, as well as only running service where the demand warrants our service, and not paying for buses running empty with less than one passenger per hour.
Well, a bus that runs with at least one passenger is not empty. Is that correct?
Technically, you're right. It is not empty, but is it an efficient cost to run a bus for one passenger at a subsidy of close to $60 per passenger, or should we shift that one passenger to like Lyft and Uber and subsidize their trip for $5? That's where a lot of these changes are stemming from.
Now, if you shifted to Lyft, Uber, wouldn't the passenger have to pay a certain percent?
Yes. It all depends on how far they travel. If a passenger travels less than about 4.5 miles, then the Comet would end up paying for the entire trip, no subsidy from the passenger. If the trip exceeds that, then yes, that user will be paying anything above the $5.
Well, look at what you're saying, and the way I interpret. The one or two passengers who presently don't pay anything and ride the buses. It's too bad for you. During the pandemic, it's just too bad.
Well, I don't necessarily want to say that. I would like you to be encouraged that the Comet Night program is actually on a month-by-month basis increasing, which is telling me that Comet users are embracing utilizing Lyft and Uber, which is more flexible, because if you work at Walmart, for instance, on Forest Drive, and you live on Two Notch Road, you can have a car come directly to you in front of the Walmart store late at night and then drop you off directly at home, versus having to walk in the dark to a bus stop, take the bus downtown, being probably the only passenger on that bus, transfer to a 501, probably being the only passenger on that bus, and then still having to walk home. So our riders are seeing value in this Comet on the Go program, and that's why we're recommending adding more hours to it to make it more robust, so that we're not leaving people without options. One thing we could discuss with the board, and I would like to discuss more of the finance, is perhaps maybe we increase that subsidy from $5 perhaps to maybe $8 to $10. I'm starting to see some transit agencies across the country that have partnerships with Lyft and Uber increase their subsidies.
Is it possible to eliminate the discount, eliminate the amount of fee the passenger has to pay?
Yes, if we increase that subsidy, then yes, we'll be able to increase the number of miles traveled to where a COMET user would not have to pay out of pocket. And then that's one conversation I would like to have with the Finance Committee to see if they're comfortable with that, increasing of subsidy.
I would suggest that we go to the Finance Committee and see whether or not we can increase the subsidy, and then if we can't, then we come back and discuss this again.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Mood.
I would suggest an alternative to what Dr. Morris just said. I would like for us to proceed with implementing the program as it is, and then take his suggestion to the Finance Committee, because we can modify one or two elements, but I would not want us to hold up the entire package waiting for a decision that could be made as a later modification.
Okay. All right. Very good. Any other comments or points?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this question was for Mike Green. This question was more for Mr. Ando. Mr. Ando, can you explain a little bit more about the what were you talking about? The volunteer service, or you were talking about outside of the DART area? I didn't quite grasp all that.
Yeah, so we have two programs that are going to be launched next month using 5310 funding. The first program is called V-Trip, where if you are a senior or have a disability, if you find somebody that can drive you to where you need to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as the originating point is outside of the DART service area, we will reimburse that user the IRS rate of 58.5 cents per mile up to 100 miles per month. So that opens the door to a lot of seniors and persons with disabilities that need transportation but can't get it because DART doesn't serve them. The second program is a partnership with taxis, Lyft, and Uber, where we'll give seniors and persons with disabilities a $50 credit card that can only be used on one of those three modes to get transportation 24 hours a day outside of the DART service area to do for whatever trip purpose that they have.
Okay, so they can. Let me just make sure. So we're giving them a $50 card if they live outside of the DART area. Is that per month?
That is per month, correct.
Okay. And the other is that we would pay up to 50 cents for a driver, or the IRS deductible, whatever it is, for the driver up to 100 miles a month?
That's the alternative program, yes.
The alternative, okay. All right, thank you. That's very important, and that would be very beneficial to some people, I believe, over here in West Columbia. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thank
this
you.
is Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Green. All right, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I would just like to commend the staff for their continuing effort to right-size the system. This, and remind everyone, we're not just reducing, we're adding some service in this motion. But I really want to commend the staff for their continual efforts to examine the service and right-size it. Everybody that we can change it again, and will change it again probably in 4 to 6 months. So thank you for what you're doing, because I know as a taxpayer in Richland County, I'm keenly interested in making sure that we are wise when we are spending the public's dollars. So thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. I certainly agree with Mr. Anderson, but in addition to that, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that there are individuals who just don't have funds. And maybe we need to, as Ms. Mood suggests, we go to the Finance Committee to see whether or not we can come up with some additional funds for those individuals who cannot find services, or those individuals who are riding the buses during this coronavirus period.
Yes, sir. I agree. Good point. Good point.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to call for the question.
Okay.
Second, Anderson, second.
Call for the question. Madam Secretary.
Repeat the motion. Repeat the motion, please.
Okay. Repeat that motion again.
This is Anderson. I would move to approve the public hearing and the route changes. Accept the findings of the public hearing and approve the route changes.
All right.
And I would like to amend that.
And I second it.
I would like to amend that. I would like to amend the motion.
Okay, how would you like to amend it, Dr. Morris?
I would like to amend the motion to indicate that this should, in addition to the motion, it should go to the Finance Committee to discuss looking at funds for those individuals who would be affected by this change.
Dr. Morris, if the maker of the motion approve it, I can second the amendment to the motion.
Before I approve it, I have a question to clarify. So you're saying your amendment would your amendment allow this to go into effect and simultaneously send it to finance, or is your amendment to send it to finance before we let it proceed?
No, it could, the motion could go into effect, but I just wanted to go to finance so we can take a look at those individuals who are going to be affected by these changing services.
Yeah.
Okay. I accept
Mr. Chairman.
That. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ron. And if that's your, I can second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded, so now let's debate any question about the amendment. Let's ask any questions about the amendment. I know Mr. Anderson had one. Any other questions about the amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
I just wondered if it might be clearer if we made those two separate motions, one to pass the package and then have Dr. Morris make his motion about that specific that he wants addressed by the Finance Committee as a separate motion.
Lil, I think the motion would be fine the way it is, and we can keep moving.
Okay,
let's go
sounds
ahead.
fine to me.
So what we need to do is go ahead and usually you go ahead and vote on the amendment. All in favor of amendment as Dr. Morris has suggested, his amendment. I'm gonna just go ahead and do a quick roll call on from Madam Clerk. This is. Yes.
Ms. Ratio, she had to drop off actually. Ms. Dickerson?
Yes.
Ms. Bleaton? Mr. Huggins? Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
And Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Okay, so the main motion has been amended. The main motion has been amended. So now we would go ahead and just vote on the.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 2 1
now we go ahead and vote on the main motion.
3 0 5 4 0 is not available.
But we don't need the main I don't think the amended motion took care of that, Mr. Speak.
Go ahead.
We put on the amended motion, right?
With the amended motion, okay, so we put on the amended motion. All right, very good then. So the motion passes. The motion passes, and we'll go ahead and implement it as outlined. and take a look at it later on as we see necessary. Okay, motion passes. That brings us down to the next item, which is the consent calendar. Item 7. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Anderson. I move to approve the consent calendar as written.
I second.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Lee.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and vote on it. All in favor? Again, Madam Secretary, Madam Clerk, go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Colonel Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Ms. Layton, Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So it passed. The consent calendar passed. Approval. Okay. Brings us down to item 8, Finance Committee update and action items. That'll be led by Mr. Andy Smith and Ms. Rosalind Andrews. Andy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Finance Committee met on October 14th. First items we discussed were our standing sort of discussion about current financial matters and also a DBE update. I think we noted that we're still, again, early in the year, so we're in there, and finance staff and Dr. Prince are still working to get, reporting in a manner that's, helpful for us, especially on the DBE end, given that we have a new contractor and we're still working through some issues there. So we just took that as information. There was no action associated with either of those things. We then had a discussion item related to a request for a refund. We discussed the nature of the request and our current policy, and basically there was a motion made to adhere to our existing no refund policy, but then direct staff to send a letter to the individual with a copy of the policy. And the request had to do with somebody who was moving out of town and was not going to be able to use their pass. Mr. Ando, do we need for the board to formally approve that, or is the Finance Committee's action sufficient?
The board will need to approve that.
Okay, so that motion was as a recommendation to the board.
Okay. Can we get a motion? Or did you make it, Mr. Smith?
Is now joining.
Mr. Chair, I just go ahead and move that we accept the chair's recommendation that came out of the committee.
Second it.
Properly moved and second. All right, we'll go ahead and I'm getting a lot of echo. Go. Okay. Madam Chair, Secretary, will you go ahead and do me a roll call on that item?
Yes, Colonel Lee,
Excuse me. Before we vote, though, do we have any discussion on that item? The customer request for cash refund? If not, okay. We'll go ahead and vote. Go ahead, sorry, Madam Clerk. Go ahead.
okay, Colonel Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Ms. Layton, Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard.
Here.
Dr. Morris.
Yes.
And Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
So the motion passes. All right, very good. We are off the coordinate. We move on to eight, Bravo. Eight Bravo. Dr. Prince?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. I have a question
Yes,
for Dr. Prince before she gets started.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on the they have Dr. Prince for rep there, subcontracting. Does she do the same thing for the COMET subcontracting? Is that included in her report? I want to know why is that separate?
Well, I don't know who, Dr. Prince,
Well,
can she
Prince
answer?
should be able to answer that.
Yeah, Dr. Prince.
Dr. Prince.
Okay, I'm kind of unclear.
It's on page
If
174.
if you were doing rep there, some subcontracting, are you doing the same with the COMET subcontracting? If not, why is it different?
What I am doing today is just sharing information about a request. In terms of the COMET subcontractor, I don't have anything to present at this time, but when I present information next month, and especially to the Finance Committee, we will include the DBE goal percentage, and we'll have documentation, written documentation, so everyone can get a visual picture of where we are with our DBE goal for the agency.
Aren't the other three contractors DBE contracts?
The other three?
Security contract, landscaping, and janitorial. Aren't those DBE contracts?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Mr. Ando will be handling those.
But aren't you the DBE compliance officer?
Yes, I am.
All right, so that's what I want to know. Why is that separated, and you're not giving that total report?
I guess on items, security, landscaping, janitorial, these are based on award, and Mr. Ando is the contract administrator.
Let me apologize for asking that question then, because I didn't get it answered.
Who you want to answer that?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I could help.
Somebody should answer that question. We have a DBE compliance officer, and we got DBE broken into two categories, where the only report that she can give us is about rep there. And all we're hearing about is these contracts that the COMET, these DBE contracts that the COMET is doing.
Okay.
So that's
Mr.
to come from
would you like me to give a response?
Yeah, please, Mr. Andor.
So the first item that Dr. Prince is going to be summarizing on behalf of the Finance Committee relates to RATP Dev making a request to change subcontractors. Per the contract, the board has to approve that. That's why Dr. Prince is doing that one. The next three items after that, we went out to procurement for janitorial, landscaping, and security. And because I'm the contract officer, that's why I'm presenting those three items based on how those procurements went. So these are, they're four separate matters. That's why they're broken up separately.
Mr. Chair, on this landscaping contract, didn't we give that contract to Capital City had it one time, and then we give some of it to City Sit on a partnership?
Right.
Anybody from finance, Mr. Ando, can you answer that question?
want to make sure I understand. You want to give the landscaping work to whom? I'm sorry?
I don't want to give it to nobody. I asked you who had it.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Mr. Chairman, point of order. Could we complete the agenda item we're on with Dr. Prince before we move to the landscaping question?
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Chairman, that wasn't, we didn't do an individual item. My question to Dr. Prince, if she's the DBE officer and these 4 contracts are DBE contracts, why she isn't giving us a report on all 4 of these contracts rather than John and Mr. Andor doing 3 of them?
All right, that's a valid question. Do you work on all the contracts or just certain contracts? Can you answer that, John? Ms.
Yes, I'll answer it again. Dr. Prince is responsible for reviewing the DBE subcontracts of RATP Dev. And because RATP Dev wants to make a change, that's why she is presenting those. The janitorial, landscaping, and security are direct contracts with the COMET, and they were under procurement with me as the contracting officer. That's why I'm presenting it to the board as a contracting officer for those 3. Going forward, once the board makes an award to those 3 companies, Dr. Prince will report on their performance under her DBE report to the board.
Okay. I got that, Mr. Ferguson? Okay.
I'm getting a lot of information, but I'm not getting what I asked. I asked if once again, I asked if we have a DBE officer, regardless to who's contracting, because the chair, you contract with the legal, so that doesn't make any difference. You got a DBE officer. Why isn't this report coming from the DBE officer? I guess I have to get that answered in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we should do an in-depth study of that and find out. That might be wise to do rather than trying to do it here, Mr. Fergus. So, if you agree to that, we'll go ahead and move on. We make sure we get the answers to those questions for you. All right. Continue, Dr. Prince.
Okay, on pages 174 through 177 of your board packet is information regarding DBE subcontracting opportunities for RATP Dale. Is regarding bus stop maintenance, detailing, drug and alcohol testing, and company physicals. The first item, bus stop maintenance, is an item that was already included in the contract. And I just want to let you know that Capital Building Services is the DBE firm selected to handle this particular activity. And a contract has been executed between RATP Dale and Capital Building Services for the life of the contract. So this is just an update on this particular one, so there is no action required. The next item that I want to share with you is about vehicle detailing. Capital Building Services was listed as the firm to handle vehicle detailing, but they informed us that they will be unable to perform this activity. But they are continuing to handle the work of vehicle detailing until a replacement is found. RATP Dale has decided to subcontract the vehicle detailing with Transport Care Services to handle this task. Now, Transport Care Services is certified to handle vehicle washing, but they are not certified to handle vehicle detailing. So they would like to sub the work to Care Pro, a DBE firm that is certified to handle vehicle detailing, and this is allowable under the regulation.
Devin.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Prince.
Yeah.
Okay, do
you
you
ask the question?
You want to answer the question now? You want me to continue?
You continue now. I ask that.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, RATP Dale is continuing to seek contracting opportunities with DBE firms, and they would like to utilize a DBE firm to assist them with drug and alcohol requirements and the company physicals. And they would like to add Ed Rush Consulting and Development, a firm that's certified to handle these work items. And Ed Rush Consulting is already an approved DBE firm to handle uniforms. And we're requesting the board of directors to give the COMET staff approval to proceed with allowing RATP Deb subcontract with Transport Care Service to handle the bus detailing via CarePro, and Ed Rush Consulting to handle the drug and alcohol testing and the company physical. This ends my report.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
what do you want us to do? Before we get into discussion on this, we get you, Dr. Morris, but before we get into discussion on what do you want us to do on this? What should we do on this?
We are requesting that you give us approval to proceed with allowing RATP Deb to handle the bus detailing and also Ed Rush to handle the drug and alcohol testing and company physical.
Okay. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Second,
Okay.
Sanderson, second.
Properly moved and second. All right. Now, at this time, we will go into discussion. Dr.
I have a question. Dr. Prince, did I hear you mention something about washing the buses?
Yes. Currently, Transport Care Services is certified to handle vehicle washing, but they are not certified to handle vehicle detailing. So RATP Deb would like for Transport Care to handle both functions so that it'll be more like they're working hand in hand with the firm that will be performing the vehicle detailing.
Okay, but another question, following up on that. Isn't the COMET responsible for the washing equipment?
Dr. Morris, to answer your question, yes, the COMET's responsible for providing the washing equipment. RATP Deb is responsible for fixing the equipment.
Okay, I heard over a year ago, it came to the board that we must repair that washing equipment. Has it been done?
Yes, Transdev did those repairs a year and a half ago.
And Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Gagner, is it operating fully today?
Mr. Gagner? Is here, Mr. Corey Gagner present? Mr. Gagner?
Yes, I am. I apologize. I had to get a microphone and take my mask off, so thank you, board, for hearing me. Currently, the wash is in operation. I'll be frank, it does have some issues. Bus washes always seem to have a series of breakdowns and repairs over the life of a bus wash. Big vehicles moving in and out of them, sometimes things get hit. Jerry Bowers just last week, who was our facility maintenance person, did have to order some new parts for the bus washer so that it will be operating correctly. So I'm expecting those parts to be in this week or early next week to be fully up and operational. Right now, I would say that the bus wash is 85% operational. It gets most of the stuff, but it's missing a couple small items.
Okay, so the washers are not operating completely, effectively.
No, it's not 100%, no, but we make do. We ordered some wash buckets and some brushes, and what we asked is that TCS, before it actually enters the bus wash, we know the parts that it doesn't get, so we soak those up and wash them ahead of getting into the bus wash because the rinse portion does work.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Burgess.
Now there were two bus contracts on bus cleaning. Does this report, and they're requesting now to make that just one with Transport Care? Can somebody answer that? Do we have one now contract rather than two?
Yes, it will be Transport Care will be handling everything regarding the vehicle cleaning and the detailing.
All right, let me ask another. I noticed that the percentage of DBEs is hovering around 20%, and it has to be a struggle to stay at 20%. Are those figures right? Seem like at some point it should go above, way above 20%.
I guess what I was gonna say is that, RATP, what they're currently doing is there were some revisions made to their contract, so it impacted some of the, percentages for the DBE goals. So what they're doing is they're adding additional DBEs to ensure that they meet that they meet or exceed the 20% goal that was included in their contract.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Any other discussion?
I think.
Who's that? Okay, if there are no other discussions, we'll go ahead at this time, and if you're ready to vote, we'll go ahead and vote as to whether or not we should accept the recommendation as put forward by Dr. Prince and the staff. And I think what it says here, staff is requesting that the director authorize RFP to add DBE to the performing vehicle detailing, drug and alcohol testing and physical. That's the motion, right? Who made the motion anyway? Did you make that motion?
I did.
Okay. So that's the motion. Go ahead. All right.
I made that motion, and it was consistent with what Dr. Prince, how she framed it.
Okay. All right. For the secretary to get it verbatim, did you get it? Did you get that page? You got that question? You got that?
Yes,
you
sir.
have
Would
that
you like
motion?
to read it?
Please read it for me, if you will.
Okay. Motion was made by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mr. Anderson that to give staff authorization to proceed with approval of the RATP Dev subcontracting with TCS to handle the vehicle detailing with TerraPro, a certified DPE, and RATP Dev subcontracting with Ed Rush Development and Consulting to handle drug and alcohol testing and company physicals.
All right. That's our motion. It's properly moved to second, and now we are. If you're ready to vote, we'll go ahead and vote for it. Madam Clerk, will you do me a roll call on that, please?
Yes, sir. Colonel Leaks?
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson?
Ms. Dickerson?
Mr. Huggins? Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Booth?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
And Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion passes.
So the motion passes. All right. Very good. Next item on the agenda is 8, Charlie. Security contract award, and that will be led by Mr. John Andor. And the package information page found on page 178 through 182. Mr. Andor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, page 182. Sorry, 1 second.
178 to 182.
I'm sorry, yeah. Page 178, requesting authorization to award contract for security guard services. Through discussion at the Finance Committee, The Finance Committee is recommending that you authorize the Executive Director to negotiate and upon successful negotiations, execute a contract with New Age Security to provide security guard services for the COMET for a 5-year period with 5 one-year options. Negotiations are not successful to negotiate an award to the second most responsive bidder, Strategic Service Security, as well as schedule a meeting with appropriate law enforcement to determine if the security guard should be armed or unarmed. That was the final motion that came out of the Finance Committee. We released an RFP and we got 2 responses, and a New Age Security, the current vendor that's doing security under the previous TransDev contract, was the most successful bidder. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Chair, this is Anderson, motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Any comments, discussion? If not, we'll go ahead and vote on it. Madam Clerk, will you give me a roll call, please?
Colonel Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson, Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
So the motion passes. So we'll respond accordingly. That doesn't sound good. 8 Delta, landscaping contract, Johanna Indoor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is the authorized award for landscaping services. The Finance Committee is recommending to the board to authorize the Executive Director to negotiate and upon successful negotiations, execute a contract with A. James Global Services to provide landscaping services for the Commons for a 5-year period with 5 one-year options. And if negotiations are not successful, to negotiate an award to the second most responsive bidder, Greg Lawn and Landscaping. Previously, Capital Building Services was performing the landscaping under the previous TransDev contract, and they're still doing that today under an interim contract. They did not bid. From talking with them, they did not have enough time to prepare a bid for both the janitorial and for the landscaping, so they opted to only do the janitorial. And so based on the scores from the evaluation committee, A. James Global Services is what's being recommended for the board to consider. You have to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Chair, this is Anderson, motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Got the motion. Let's go through with this, Mr. President, then we'll get to questions. Can I get a second? Did you get a second on that?
I seconded it.
Okay. Who seconded that?
Andy.
Okay, properly moved in second. Oh, now we're into the debate. Mr. Burgess.
Well, you know, my question was with this Capital Building Services, they backed out of the busking contract and the landscaping contract. What are we using them for now?
So if I understand your question, before now, who's providing the service?
I'm saying if this company was not up to par for 2 other services, what are we using them for now? If they weren't up to par with cleaning and with landscaping, what are we using them for now?
Capital Building has done a fine job with our landscaping. They just was not able to bid because they didn't have enough resources to bid on both services. So they only opted on the janitorial side. So AJ Global, we don't have experience working with them. So this will be a new relationship with them. But the evaluation committee reviewed their proposal, their references, and they believe that they're the best suited vendor to provide the landscaping services based on the RFP that that was written.
Okay. That ain't, okay, very good. Any other discussion or points? Okay. Not here, none, then, we'll go ahead and vote on this. Madam Clerk, give me a roll call, please.
Okay, hold on a second.
Into our meeting.
Gonna be really 4.
Okay, Colonel Leeds,
Yes.
Mr. Huggins, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Ratio, Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson, Ms. Layton, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Representative Howard. Okay, Mr. Burgess,
Abstain.
and Dr. Morris.
Yes.
Okay, how do we, did we pass, did that pass?
Yes, sir.
Is this motion pass? It passed? Okay. All right, very good. Then motion passes. We go and move on to the next item, which is the janitorial award. Or did that include it? Janitorial award, Mr. Andor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the board, the Finance Committee studied this, and they're recommending to the Board of Directors to authorize the Executive Director to negotiate, and upon successful negotiation, execute a contract with Capital Building Services to provide janitorial services for the Commons facility for a 5-year period with 5 one-year options, and if negotiations are not successful, to negotiate an award to the second most responsive bidder, B&C Associates. Presently, Capital Building Services is providing the janitorial services. They have been providing the janitorial services for a long time, and they do a good job. And the evaluation committee reviewed their proposal and is recommending that the board concur with their recommendation. And this was studied at the Finance Committee. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
All right, can I get a motion on that?
It's
Can I get a
Anderson.
motion?
To approve.
Okay, can I get a
A
second?
second.
Properly moved in second. Open for discussion. Anyone that has any questions for Mr. Andor? Anyone? Not hearing any questions. Madam Clerk, will you do me a roll call on that particular motion? Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard, Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
So the motion passes. Next item on the agenda. 8, bus trans. Electric bus transfer and WeGo Transit. From WeGo Transit. John and Mr. Andor. The information in the package can be found on page 216 through 218.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the Finance Committee discussed this and recommends authorizing the Executive Director to send a letter of interest to receiving up to 5 electric buses from Nashville Metropolitan Transit Authority and return to the Finance Committee and the Board of Directors with the final terms of the vehicle transfer. Just so that the board is aware, WeGo Transit is their brand name. They recently discontinued their downtown circulator, and they're offering to transfer up to 5 of their electric buses purchased in 2014 to another transit agency to use in revenue service, since they still have FTA life in them until 2026. These are the first generation electric buses that require an overhead charger, and they can generally operate 10 miles before requiring a 10-minute charge. So they work well on short downtown type routes. Before we can make sure that we can accept these buses, we still need to take the following issues into consideration. Training of the staff to operate and maintain this equipment, installation of a charging station at our operations and maintenance facility, approval by SCDOT to put the overhead charger next to COMET Central to charge the proposed route that would use these buses, approval from the City of Columbia, including whatever permits is necessary for that charger, and then an establishment of an account with Dominion Energy regarding the use of electric buses, since it would put us in a different rate schedule than what we're currently paying for electricity here at the COMET main facilities and at COMET Central. So those are the things that staff would like to continue to study and then report back to the Finance Committee and the board before recommending a formal vehicle transfer. WeGo Transit just asked for a letter of interest if we're interested in having the ability to have these electric buses. Staff has also researched with Proterra if the batteries can be changed out so that we don't have to be so dependent on the overhead charger, and I'm awaiting a response to that question. And then I also have meetings set up with Dominion Energy to talk about what does it take to have an electric bus fleet, since there are several transit agencies in South Carolina that have started the conversion to electric and they've worked with them on establishing the appropriate rate schedule. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Chair, this is Anderson. I'd motion to approve.
All right. Can we get a second?
And I second.
Probably move to second now, debate period. John, I'd like to ask you a question. John, I'm just thinking, with a range of 10 miles. Now, what size buses are these?
These are 35-foot buses.
The rather long buses, 35-foot buses, a range of 10 miles, and I'm also wondering about the how many buses we're talking about?
They're willing to transfer up to 5.
Okay, 5 buses. And what technology is this? 2014, you say?
2014 electric. So this is their 3rd generation electric bus.
Okay, and now it's 2021 for all practical purposes. I'm trying to figure, John, it seems like a lot of unknowns that we have here. I don't know how anybody else feels about it. It looks like a lot of unknowns. Do you think, is this something we really want? Will we be doing them a favor if we tie up their buses, tie up their commitment, and then we find out we don't want it? Or something like that. Any cost to us or any feedback if we did that?
Talking with their CEO and their operations staff, they're fine with just a letter of interest, and they know that we have to do some investigation here to see if we can accept it based on those points that I mentioned below. So we're doing those investigations as we speak, and I anticipate we should have some answers in the next 30 to 45 days, and then we will report back to the Finance Committee and this board, and then WeGo Transit, if this can even be done or not. They just asked for a letter of interest so they can also advise their board that there is a transit agency interested and that they don't release the buses to another transit agency, since right now electric buses are hot across the industry.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
Oh, the only question I have, but my chairman seconded, is there any information in the service committee about these electric buses, since it is the thing of the future?
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yes.
Please, Ms. Booth.
I think what the question that Mr. Burgess is asking is the one that would need to be addressed in 8G, because of the whole exploration of what kind of technology we want to use in our Vision 2020 and our other long-term planning. I think it's a part of that process. So I believe that that's how the service committee will be involved. And right now, I don't believe I think we can proceed with the request that John is making on 8F without putting that one step through the service committee. And I think we can get all of our concerns addressed in 8G.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? I'd like to ask one final question. Do you feel, with all the unknowns we have here, do you think we're in the least bit being premature to go ahead and tie these buses up, in a sense, with these people before we know some of the answers, like how much Dominion is going to charge us? What is it going to do with our reserves? 5 buses. How is that going to impact our reserves?
So we will have to retire 5 of our 2014 propane cutaways since they would have reached their useful life. They're 7-year buses, basically. Now, I just want to mention, we don't have to take all 5. We could possibly take 1 or 2, but they do have up to 5 that could be potentially available. Any transit agency that would want to do this transfer will have to do the same investigative research, except approximately 6 transit agencies in the country that's using this overhead charger technology. So I don't think we'd be locking up the buses, since we're already doing the research now, and they're fully aware that we have to do and address these points before we can give a full commitment. And they also need to, of course, work through their board processes to formulate that transfer.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will ask our clerk to do a roll call for me on item 8F, electric bus transfers.
Colonel Leap,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard, Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
So it's passed. And we'll act accordingly. Item 8C, schedule a workshop to discuss vehicle technology. Mr. Andover.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the Finance Committee discussed this, and at the request of Dr. Morris wanting to study vehicle technologies, the Finance Committee is recommending to the Board of Directors that we schedule a workshop to discuss vehicle technology and a strategy for what is going to be the fuel of choice going forward when we have to start replacing buses in as early as 2024. So I'm just requesting that the Board of Directors authorize scheduling a workshop to study vehicle technologies and their capital costs, variable costs, and environmental impact. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I move we approve.
Anderson, second.
I have a question.
Properly moved to second. Okay, debate period. Go ahead, Dr. Morris.
From the research that Mr. Andor shared with the Finance Committee, and the fact that the research that's out there, electric buses going to be the future, whether we like it or not. Gasoline, diesel, natural gas, all those going to be in a decline. The mayor thought that we have climate problems, and this is going to be the way to go in the future. So I think we should get more information. We should study it and make a decision along with observing what we do with these 5 buses, whether or not this is what we want to do in the future.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
Now, the only question I have is why both of these items didn't come to service before going to finance.
Mr. Andor and Mr. Smith, can you answer that?
Yeah, I can answer. The reason why I went to finance is because they have a financial impact. And since there was a capital cost consideration, that's why it went to finance. If we need to discuss them in both finance and service, I can work with Ms. Mood to put this matter off on the service committee agenda as well.
And from my perspective, that's a reasonable approach. So I wouldn't have turned down a request for the finance committee to hear either of these items.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess.
I'm thinking that anything that's dealing with service should come to the service committee and get approval before going to finance. That's just like service approving something financial, then sending it to the finance committee. We have to respect each other's committees and the chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that wherever this starts, I think we has both service implications and financial implications, and I'm satisfied that if the homework that John is doing in terms of the electric bus transfer can include having the discussion with the service committee, that can be a part of that homework. And then on the item we are looking at right now, 8G, the scheduled workshop, I think this is a broad board policy, and so I believe it's appropriate for the entire board to be fully informed, so that wherever our process takes us through committees, we are all operating under a general understanding of a policy direction that the board wants to take.
Okay, very good. Any other comments?
I would just comment that neither of these items are presented to the board today for any kind of final action. The first one, F, the finance committee made a recommendation to the board that we encourage John to send a letter of interest, and the second one is encouraging a workshop of the entire board. So I mean, in neither case did we, as the finance committee, feel like we had any kind of final say.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that clarification, Mr. Smith. Any other comments? Say again. Okay. If there are no other comments, then Madam Clerk, will you give us a roll call on that one on item 8G?
Colonel Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard, Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Okay. So the motion passes. So we'll be authorized to go ahead and set that workshop sometime in the future. That brings us down to item 9G.
Mr. Chair, before you move, can we wait till this pandemic is over before we schedule any workshops?
We will take a close look at that, Mr. Burgess. That's a good point. We will. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead on and move to item 9A, Service Committee request for Town of Chapin. Mr. Andor.
Yes, would you like me to do this or Ms. Mood, just to be clear?
Wait, I skipped one. Let's do it. Ms. Mood, give us a service update, please.
Okay, well, the board has our minutes, but I'll just make two comments generally. One is that the service committee is still experiencing difficulties and having some questions on getting the kind of data that we need to look at key performance indicators on the contract, but that's a part of a larger contractual question, so performance question. So I'm not that I don't need to go into that in this item. And then the second thing was that we have had a request from Mr. Huggins to have our next service committee meeting be on site so that we can actually see what is happening with the bus washer and examine what the problems have been in terms of bus cleanliness. And so we're trying to plan towards that. On the next items, the 9A and B, the service committee did vote to approve sending those to the board with our recommendation for approval. And so I'm turning that over to John.
Okay. You want to add anything to that, John?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So page number 230, the town of Chapin is requesting that we provide a trolley from November 12 to November 14. This would be a shuttle that would operate in downtown Chapin for a special event that they're happening. The path of the route will mimic 93X. It'll be open to the public, and it'll be advertised as such. And under our special service policy, this needs to be reviewed by the service committee with a recommendation to the board for consideration. The town of Chapin will compensate the COMET for providing this extra service, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
All right. Can we get a motion on that?
So moved.
Okay.
Now, second.
Properly moved in second. Okay. Now, any questions? Anyone has a question for John? For anybody about this? No questions? Very good. So let's go ahead and vote on it, Madam Secretary. Give me a roll call, please.
Colonel Lee.
It's gonna be 10. Yes.
Ms. Dickerson.
Dixon, yes.
Mr. Huggins. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Mood.
Yes.
Representative Howard.
Yes.
Dr. Morris.
Abstain.
And Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Motion passes.
It's what?
It passed.
It passed?
Yes,
The
sir.
motion passed. Motion passed. Thank you very much. So we move on to now to item number 9B, social service request for Columbia Housing Authority. Pages
Yes,
231 to 232. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We received a request from the Columbia Housing Authority to transport seniors using our on-demand service to help get seniors to go out and vote. This matter was discussed at the service committee, and the service committee is recommending approval of allowing our on-demand service to provide seniors the ability to get to polling stations in Richland County to vote. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
If my man come back from around, Kim already took the bag back.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, do we have,
Mr. Chair, Ms. Anderson, I motion to approve.
okay.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Okay. Any discussion? Hear none. We'll take a vote on it. Madam
Colonel
Secretary.
Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Terratio. Ms. Dickerson.
Yes.
Mr. Huggins. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Mood.
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
and Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes.
So the motion passes. Very good. Item
Hi,
number-
everybody. Hi, can you all
Item
hear me?
Yes, they can hear you, Ms. Trace, yes.
Hi, I
Item
just want to
number-
let everybody know I just got back to the meeting. My other meeting ended, so I've returned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 11, item number 10, motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Okay, Ms. Booth.
All right. I move that board policy be changed to say that all appointments and hiring of key contractor staff and COMET staff be accepted without service committee or board involvement if they meet the qualifications specified in the contract and/or the job description as verified by the executive director, and that this motion be referred to the executive committee for consideration and a recommendation to the full board. And I realize that's a long
Mr.
motion,
Chair.
so I'm going to send it to Mr. Ando and Page so they'll have it in writing.
I'll second that motion. This is Anderson.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Harris.
it seems like that motion want to eliminate a lot of board members, especially board members of color. If that was the...
We don't have to act on, we can't act on the motion at this meeting. I'm just making the motion.
She just making that motion. We're gonna,
That motion seems to want to reject a lot of board members, especially the board members of color. If you eliminate 11 board members and put a key decision to 5.
okay, I follow you. Well, I tell you what, this is just a motion.
Thank you.
We'll study it and make a recommendation later on. Any other, but that's a good point, Ms.
I would just clarify that the reason I recommended that it go to the executive committee is because we require vetting by a committee and it within service or within finance, and so the executive committee is the alternative. But that would just be for a recommendation to the full board.
Okay, well, that's great, Ms. Moon. So we'll take that down.
I stand by what I said, Mr. Chair. If the makeup of the executive committee was different, we wouldn't have gotten that recommendation.
Okay, well, look, Mr. Ferguson, we'll work on that. We'll talk on that. But I appreciate that comment. Anybody else wants to make a motion? Any other motion? Having none, then motion period is closed. Got one motion.
Don't we?
That moves us on to, it's nothing to vote on, so we just take that. So we move on to item number 11. The first one is
we do have to vote about whether to send it to the executive committee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you, per the board policy, you can take a vote on that.
Wait. I thought this would be on a future when we could really vote on it, because we don't supposed to vote on these right here. That was my understanding, right?
The motion is to send it to a committee for consideration. That's it.
Okay.
If it does, I'm going to file a Title VI complaint.
All right. I'm kind of confused because I thought this was just where we took motions and later put them on the agenda
what we can't do is act on the substance of the motion. We couldn't vote on what I was recommending, but I think we do have to, just to keep it moving, we have to send it to a committee because that's what our procedures require.
Okay. All right.
And
so you You send it to the executive committee?
That was my recommendation.
Okay, did we get a second on that? We need a motion. Got a motion? So that was a motion. Did we
I
get
already
a second?
seconded it. I seconded it, the same.
Okay, properly moved in second. Any debate?
Mr. Chair, Robert Meyer. My concern with this is, although I hear what Ms. Mood is saying in terms of sending it to a committee, I think the board has the authority to send a motion or send any act to the board at our next meeting to be considered. I would hope that we would we would discuss this at the board and not in a committee. Now we're beginning to select what we send to a committee. It is my understanding that the board has the authority to send to anything to a committee and not the committee to the board. So I am saying that I don't think this motion is appropriate.
The motion is to send it to a committee. Once it comes out of committee.
Wait a minute. Mr. Chair, I'm speaking to you.
Yes, sir, go ahead. Okay, so you don't think it's appropriate? How would you recommend, what you recommend?
It's discriminatory, it's plotted.
I would recommend that this be placed on the next board agenda.
Well, that's what I thought.
Mr. Chairman, I don't object to this going without a committee vetting. I was just trying to comply with the rules of the board. So if the preference is that this be placed on the agenda for full board discussion, that's perfectly all right with me.
Okay.
I'll accept that modification.
Yeah. Okay, very good then.
You can bring it. Just don't lose it.
That make it more powerful for them. Somebody needs to mute the phone. Please mute the phone.
Well, it could be, it's heavy. You might leave it somewhere. We've lost him before.
You mute your phone? Okay.
If she's gonna go.
Ms. Tracy?
This is Horatio.
We can't do anything
I think
on
that
this.
your phone is not muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. My son is trying to get permission to do something.
Thank you much. Okay. All right. Okay. So you'll accept those modifications, both the maker of the motion and the second of the motion. So in discussion, will that take care of you? Take care of your concerns, Mr. Burgess and Mr. Dr.
Mr.
Meyer?
Chair, as chairman,
Yeah.
you can put that item on the next board meeting. We don't have to do anything. You can set the agenda at any board meeting as chair.
Well,
So that at the next board, it's there.
well, I tell you what, let's just go ahead and follow the procedure. Since
No, it's no
Ms. Moon-
procedure. You're the chair. If you say you wanted the next board meeting, it's a discussion there.
Okay. Well, I
Mr.
understand,
Chair?
but since yes, Dr. Murray.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Martin.
Mr. Burgess is right. You don't need a motion. You can just add it to the agenda or the next board meeting.
Well,
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
this is
Chair,
Andy.
if that's correct, then the chair can send it to a committee too. He or she has that authority. So, I mean, any motion come before us. We've had, in my opinion, we've had these discussions a lot of times. I care less about the nature of the motion. When a motion is come to before this board, then it should be decided where that motion will go. And it should be voted on, or the chair should, according to our rules, the chair would have the authority to send that to a committee or wherever he or she deem necessary. But that motion is before us, and we have to respect it. We have to respect everyone's motion, regardless of who it comes from.
Okay, so Thank you very much. So now we have the motion, and we're talking about sending it to the full board for review. And we'll go ahead and vote on that now. All in favor? Give us a roll call, Mrs. Secretary, please. I mean, Clerk.
Colonel Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Ratio,
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson,
Yes.
Mr. Huggins, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Representative Howard, Dr. Morris,
Same.
and Mr. Burgess.
Dang.
Okay. Did it pass?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Pass. Yes, Mr. Burgess.
I will be filing a Title VI complaint, even if I have to do it personally, because these procedures that just happened are very discriminatory, and I'm willing to prove that.
All right, Mr. Burgess, we'll do that then. Let's talk about it. Okay, that sounds good. All right, now to item number 11. The chair's report, and look like they have my name here. I'm just going to say this: I think the status of the board itself, of the COMET, it is slowly but surely starting to gel. We still have some major concerns with some of our contractors, but we're working on it. I can say that our employees have been diligently working, and that's what we need. So, just to summary, the health of the board, the health of the COMET at this point is good. Next item. Next item on the board, 11. That was 11A. We're now back in regular session. We did not vote, poll, take any legal action, vote on anything. Now, is there anyone who need to make a motion of any sort? Discussion before we adjourn. Ms. Anderson. Hello.
Ron's muted, or might be having a different conversation. Mr. Chair, I think that the potential motion coming out of the executive session was that you authorize Rob Tyson and his firm to request an AG's opinion on the question of payment of interest to the COMET on its portion of the Richland County penny.
I make that motion. I move that. I make that motion.
Okay. Move. Not second. Can I get a second? I'll second it. Okay. Any further discussion on that issue? If not, then we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Any nays? No nays? Okay, so the motion passes. All right, thank you very much. Any other item on our agenda today other than that? It looks like brings out to the last one, which is adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay, can I get a second?
Anderson,
All right,
second.
thank you much. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a good long meeting. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right. Bye.
Bye.